Madame Ireti Adegbite had spent years watching her only son, Femi, attract women who were more interested in his bank account than his heart. As a billionaire tech entrepreneur, Femi had no shortage of admirers, but none of them possessed the kindness, humility, or intelligence that Ireti longed for in a daughter-in-law. After witnessing yet another failed relationship with a superficial socialite, she decided to take matters into her own hands. She would go undercover, immersing herself in a different world, to find a woman who truly valued love over wealth. The idea seemed outrageous at first. A woman of her status had never done a day of hard labor, let alone cleaning toilets and mopping floors. But Ireti was determined. She believed that the only way to truly observe a person's character was to see how they treated those they deemed beneath them. If she worked as a cleaner, she would become invisible to the people who mattered, and that would allow her to see their true colors. Late one evening, as she sipped her chamomile tea, she confided in Mama Titi, her longtime housekeeper. The older woman was shocked but impressed by the plan. "Madame, are you sure? This is not your world," Mama Titi said, shaking her head. "It will not be easy." But Ireti simply smiled, knowing that she had made up her mind. The next day, she arranged for fake identification and applied for a janitorial position at Zenith Holdings, one of the top financial firms in Lagos. As she prepared for her first day on the job, she put away her designer outfits and extravagant jewelry, replacing them with simple second-hand clothes. For the first time in decades, she stepped out of her mansion dressed as a common woman, ready to enter a world where she was nothing more than an unnoticed cleaner. Little did she know, her journey would not only change Femi's life, but also her own. The moment Madame Ireti stepped into Zenith Holdings, she realized how different this world was from the one she had always known. The front desk receptionist barely looked up when she walked in, and the security guards waved her through without a second glance. She had never felt so invisible. The luxurious hallways of the company gleamed under the fluorescent lights, and high-powered executives hurried past her without a single acknowledgement. In the cleaner's break room, she met Mama Nkechi, a tough, middle-aged woman who had been working at Zenith Holdings for nearly a decade. "You new here?" Mama Nkechi asked, eyeing Ireti suspiciously. When Ireti nodded, the older woman smirked. "Welcome to the world where we are ghosts. The only time they notice us is when something goes wrong." Ireti took note of her words, understanding that this was exactly the environment she needed to test her theory. As she moved through the office hallways with her mop, she kept her eyes open, observing the employees. Many ignored her presence, but one woman stood out Adaora as a financial analyst who greeted everyone, even the cleaners, with warmth. One afternoon, as Ireti mopped near her office, Adaora smiled and said, "Good afternoon, Ma. Hope you're having a good day." It was a simple gesture, but it meant the world to Ireti. That day, Ireti made a silent promise to herself. She would observe Adaora more closely. If she was truly the woman she seemed to be, she might just be the one for Femi. But first, Ireti needed to be sure. She couldn't afford to make a mistake. Over the next few weeks, Ireti paid close attention to Adaora. She noticed how the young woman took the time to acknowledge everyone, from the security guards to the cleaning staff. Unlike her colleagues who were always in a rush or preoccupied with their status, Adaora treated everyone with the same level of kindness and respect. It was a rare quality, and Ireti was intrigued. One afternoon, Ireti decided to conduct a small test. She deliberately spilled a bucket of water in the hallway near Adaora's office and waited to see how she would react. Most people would have either ignored it or walked away in irritation, but Adaora immediately stopped, fetched tissues from her office, and began helping to clean up the mess. "Are you okay, Ma?" she asked with genuine concern. "You must be tired from all this work." Ireti felt a surge of emotion. It had been a long time since she had met someone who showed such effortless compassion. In her world, kindness was often calculated, given only when there was something to gain. But Adaora's care seemed to come from the heart. Still, Ireti knew she had to be cautious. A kind gesture did not necessarily mean a good heart. She needed to see more. Meanwhile, trouble was brewing. Daniel, a senior financial analyst, had begun to show interest in Adaora. He was arrogant, entitled, and had a reputation for pursuing women as conquests. Ireti had seen men like him before, charming on the surface but empty inside. If Adaora was as wise as Ireti hoped, she would see through his facade. But if she fell for his charms, then Ireti would know she wasn't the one. Ireti decided to test Adaora once more. One morning, she deliberately left her cleaning supplies inside Adaora's office and pretended to be distressed about losing them. When she approached Adaora, the young woman immediately stopped what she was doing and helped search for the missing items. Despite having an important presentation that morning, Adaora didn't rush or complain. "Don't worry, Ma," she reassured Ireti. "We'll find them." Ireti was impressed. Many people in Adaora's position would have dismissed a cleaner's problem as unimportant, but she showed empathy even when she had more pressing matters to attend to. The small act reinforced Ireti's belief that Adaora was different from the other women she had observed in the past. However, she wasn't the only one paying attention. Daniel had also noticed Adaora's kindness, and he was determined to win her over. That evening, Daniel approached Adaora, inviting her to dinner at Echo Pearl, one of Lagos's most expensive restaurants. "You deserve the best," he said with a smug smile. "And I only take special women to places like this." But Adaora simply laughed and declined. "I appreciate the offer, Daniel, but I prefer a quiet evening with close friends," she replied. Daniel's smile faltered. He wasn't used to rejection. His ego bruised, he vowed to make Adaora's life difficult. Meanwhile, Ireti had seen everything from the corner of the room. She knew Daniel wouldn't give up easily, and she worried that his determination would bring trouble. It was time to accelerate her plan. She had to find a way to introduce Femi to Adaora without revealing her true identity. Madame Ireti knew that it was time to introduce Femi to Adaora, but she needed to do it carefully. She decided to call her son and mention that she had come across a woman who seemed different from all the others he had met. Without revealing how she knew her, she described Adaora's intelligence, kindness, and humility. Femi, though skeptical, agreed to meet her. However, he insisted that he was in no hurry to settle down, and that he would not entertain another matchmaking attempt from his mother. Determined to push the meeting forward, Ireti arranged for Femi to visit Zenith Holdings under the guise of a business meeting with the company's executives. She ensured that the meeting was set up in a way that he would cross paths with Adaora naturally. When the day arrived, Femi walked into the company's lobby, dressed in a sharp suit, exuding confidence and authority. Employees whispered about his presence, but Adaora, who was busy reviewing financial reports, barely noticed. As fate would have it, their first meeting did not go as planned. Femi accidentally bumped into Adaora as he was checking his phone, causing her to drop her files. "Excuse me," she said, bending down to pick them up. Femi, slightly irritated, barely looked at her and simply muttered, "You should watch where you're going." Annoyed by his rudeness, Adaora replied, "Maybe you should put your phone away when walking." Without another word, she walked past him, leaving Femi surprised by her attitude. Madame Ireti, who had been watching from a distance, sighed. This was not the warm introduction she had envisioned. However, she believed that things would fall into place with time. She just needed another opportunity to bring them together in a better setting. Adaora didn't think much about the rude man she had encountered in the lobby, but Femi found himself thinking about her later that day. He was used to people, especially women, being overly polite and accommodating towards him. It was rare for someone to speak to him so directly without knowing who he was. Though he found her attitude somewhat irritating, he was also intrigued by her boldness. Madame Ireti, still determined, decided to create another opportunity for them to meet. She suggested that Femi attend a business dinner being hosted by one of her friends, knowing that Adaora would be present. She subtly encouraged him to pay more attention to the people he met at the dinner instead of dismissing them too quickly. Though he wasn't enthusiastic about the idea, Femi agreed to attend. That evening, Adaora arrived at the dinner, completely unaware that the same man she had clashed with earlier would be present. As she mingled with guests, discussing financial trends and business strategies, she suddenly heard a familiar voice. Turning around, she was surprised to see Femi standing a few feet away, engaged in conversation with some investors. Their eyes met briefly, and while she recognized him, she chose to ignore him, focusing instead on her discussions. Femi, however, had already started seeing her differently. Throughout the evening, he observed how confidently she spoke and how well respected she was by her peers. He realized that she was not just another woman looking for attention, but a highly capable and intelligent professional. Something about her intrigued him, and for the first time, he considered that perhaps his mother's recommendation had some merit. After the business dinner, Femi found himself thinking about Adaora more than he expected. He wanted to know more about her, but he didn't want to make it obvious that he was interested. Instead, he casually asked his mother about her background, pretending that he was only curious. Madame Ireti, delighted that her plan was working, gave him just enough information to keep him interested, without revealing her full intentions. Meanwhile, Adaora had no idea that she was being considered as a potential wife for a billionaire. She continued with her daily work, focusing on her projects and ignoring any distractions. However, she did notice that Femi seemed to appear more often at Zenith Holdings, whether for business meetings or networking events. Their interactions remained brief and polite, but Femi began to see her in a new light. One afternoon, Femi visited the company again and found Adaora in the staff lounge, helping a junior colleague with a financial report. He observed how patient and supportive she was, explaining concepts without any sign of arrogance. It was a quality he admired, one that was rare among many people he knew. As he watched, he felt something shift within him. He was genuinely interested in getting to know her. Later that evening, Femi sent a message to his mother, admitting that Adaora seemed like an interesting person. Madame Ireti smiled to herself as she read the message. She knew that once her son's curiosity was piqued, things would unfold naturally. All she had to do was step back and let the relationship develop on its own. A few days later, Femi decided to take the next step. Instead of waiting for another random encounter, he invited Adaora to dinner. At first she was hesitant. She didn't understand why someone like him, whom she barely knew, would suddenly want to spend time with her outside of work. However, after some persuasion, she agreed. She told herself it was just a simple dinner and nothing more. They met at a cozy, high-end restaurant in Victoria Island. To Adaora's surprise, Femi was much more relaxed and easygoing than he had been during their previous encounters. He asked her about her work, her interests, and her aspirations. She found herself opening up about her dreams, her passion for finance, and her desire to make a meaningful impact in her field. Femi, in turn, shared stories about his journey in business, the challenges he faced, and his personal struggles with finding genuine connections. For the first time, Adaora saw a different side of him, one that was thoughtful, intelligent, and surprisingly humble. It was clear that behind his wealth and success, he was just a man searching for something real. By the end of the evening, Adaora felt more comfortable around him. She wasn't sure what to make of the situation yet, but she admitted to herself that she had enjoyed his company. Femi, on the other hand, left the dinner knowing one thing for sure: he wanted to see her again. After the dinner, Femi found himself drawn to Adaora in a way he hadn't expected. There was something refreshing about her presence. She was neither intimidated by his wealth nor overly impressed by it. Unlike the women he had encountered in the past, she did not try to impress him with charm or flattery. Instead, she spoke honestly and confidently, and that intrigued him even more. Adaora, on the other hand, remained cautious. While she had enjoyed their conversation, she was not the type to be easily swayed by wealth or status. She viewed their dinner as nothing more than a professional connection, and had no expectations beyond that. She continued focusing on her work, refusing to let the sudden attention from Femi distract her from her goals. However, Femi was not ready to let things end so easily. Over the next few weeks, he found ways to casually check in on her, sometimes sending her messages about finance-related topics, or inviting her to business seminars he thought she might find interesting. Adaora noticed his efforts but remained composed, treating him with the same level of professionalism and respect she showed everyone else. Madame Ireti watched their interactions from a distance, pleased that things were progressing naturally. She had done her part. Now it was up to Femi to prove himself worthy of Adaora's trust. She knew her son well. Once he set his heart on something, he would not give up easily. While Femi was trying to build a connection with Adaora, Daniel, the senior financial analyst, was growing increasingly frustrated. He had long set his sights on Adaora, believing that his charm and position would eventually win her over. However, she had repeatedly turned down his advances, and now, with Femi in the picture, he felt his chances slipping away entirely. Determined to eliminate his competition, Daniel began spreading subtle rumors around the office. He suggested that Adaora was using her connections with wealthy businessmen to climb the corporate ladder. Though these were baseless accusations, office gossip spread quickly, and soon, some of Adaora's colleagues began treating her differently. Adaora noticed the change in behavior, but did not understand what had caused it. She continued to focus on her work, refusing to let distractions affect her performance. However, when a colleague finally mentioned the rumors to her, she was both shocked and hurt. She knew she had done nothing wrong, yet she was being judged unfairly simply because she had been seen talking to Femi. When Madame Ireti overheard the gossip while cleaning in the break room, she immediately knew Daniel was behind it. Though she wanted to intervene, she knew Adaora had to handle this situation on her own. A woman of true character would not be shaken by rumors. This was yet another test of her strength. Adaora decided that she would not allow baseless gossip to tarnish her reputation. Instead of confronting Daniel directly, she continued to carry herself with dignity and professionalism, proving through her actions that the rumors were false. Her work ethic remained impeccable, and she treated everyone with kindness despite the whispers around her. Femi, however, was not as calm. When he heard about the rumors, he was furious. He had seen Adaora's integrity firsthand and could not tolerate anyone trying to bring her down. Without hesitation, he arranged a meeting with the company's senior management to address the situation. He made it clear that anyone found guilty of spreading false accusations would face consequences. As expected, the rumors quickly died down when people realized that Femi was personally involved. Daniel, realizing that his plan had failed, became even more resentful. However, he knew better than to challenge Femi directly. He decided to stay quiet, waiting for another opportunity to strike. Adaora, though relieved that the issue had been resolved, remained cautious. She appreciated Femi's support, but still maintained her distance. She was not looking for a knight in shining armor to fight her battles. She was more than capable of standing on her own. Femi had always been drawn to Adaora's independence, but seeing how she handled adversity only deepened his admiration for her. Unlike many people in his world, she did not seek validation from wealth or power. She stood firm in her values, and that was exactly the kind of woman he wanted in his life. One evening, he invited her for coffee, choosing a quiet, casual cafe instead of an extravagant venue. "I know you're not impressed by wealth," he said with a small smile, "and that's part of what I admire about you. But I also want you to know that I don't see you as just another business associate. I like you, Adaora." Adaora was taken aback by his honesty. She had suspected that he might have feelings for her, but hearing him say it so directly made her heart race. She hesitated, unsure of how to respond. While she respected Femi and had grown to enjoy his company, she was still wary of getting involved with someone from such a different world. "I appreciate your honesty, Femi," she said finally, "but I need time to process this. My career is very important to me, and I don't want to rush into anything that could complicate my life." Femi nodded, respecting her decision. "Take all the time you need," he said. "I'm not going anywhere." As weeks passed, Adaora and Femi continued to spend time together, though she was still cautious about defining their relationship. She appreciated his patience and respected his persistence, but she needed to be sure she wasn't being swept away by emotions. Meanwhile, Madame Ireti continued to observe from a distance, pleased with how things were progressing. One afternoon, Adaora found herself talking to Madame Ireti. still believing she was just an elderly cleaner. "Mama, can I ask you something?" Adaora said as she packed her lunch. "Do you think it's possible for two people from completely different worlds to have a real relationship?" Madame Ireti smiled, amused by the irony of the question. "My dear, love is not about where you come from, it's about how you see each other," she replied wisely. Adaora sighed. "But in reality, things aren't always that simple. Money changes things. Expectations change. I just don't want to be someone's charity case or someone they admire just because I'm different from the women they're used to." Madame Ireti felt a deep respect for Adaora in that moment. She was not a woman who would lose herself in the excitement of a relationship. She was someone who valued her self-worth above all. For a moment, Madame Ireti wanted to tell her the truth, to assure her that she was not being tested or pitied. But she held back. It was not yet time. She wanted Adaora to make her decision based on her feelings for Femi, not out of obligation or pressure. Despite her hesitations, Adaora could not deny that she was beginning to care for Femi. She had always believed in keeping emotions out of the workplace, but his kindness, sincerity, and unwavering respect for her boundaries made it difficult to ignore her feelings. Just when she was beginning to consider giving the relationship a real chance, an unexpected discovery changed everything. One afternoon, as she was leaving work, she overheard two executives discussing Madame Ireti. "Can you believe the Madame Adegbite was undercover as a cleaner all this time?" one of them whispered. "She did it just to find a good woman for her son, Femi." Adaora froze in place, her heart pounding. At first she thought she had misheard, but as the men continued talking, she realized that they were indeed speaking about the same cleaner she had come to admire, Mama Ireti. Shaken, Adaora left the office without saying a word. She felt a mix of emotions: shock, betrayal, and disbelief. She had confided in Madame Ireti, trusted her advice, and treated her like a friend. Now, she realized that everything had been a setup. It wasn't just Femi who had been pursuing her. His mother had been watching and testing her all along. That evening, Femi called her, but she didn't answer. She needed time to process everything. She had never felt so deceived before, and she wasn't sure if she could look at either of them the same way again. The next morning, Adaora arrived at work feeling distant and cold. She avoided everyone, especially Madame Ireti, who immediately sensed that something was wrong. When she finally approached Adaora, she was met with a piercing gaze. "I know who you are," Adaora said flatly. "I know everything." Madame Ireti sighed, realizing that the truth had come out sooner than she had planned. "Adaora, I can explain," she started, but Adaora shook her head. "You don't have to. I understand perfectly. I was a test, wasn't I? A game to see if I was worthy of your son?" Her voice was laced with disappointment. Madame Ireti's heart ached. "No, Adaora, it wasn't a game. I only wanted to find someone who truly deserved my son, someone who would love him for who he is, not for his money. I never meant to deceive you." But Adaora wasn't ready to accept her words. "It doesn't matter what your intentions were. The fact remains that you lied to me. You let me trust you when you knew all along that this was a setup." That evening, when Femi tried to visit her, she refused to see him. She wasn't sure if she could ever forgive him or his mother. It wasn't just about the lie. It was about the fact that she had been put in a situation without her consent, her life judged as if she were in an audition. And that was something she wasn't sure she could accept. Femi was devastated by Adaora's reaction, but he understood why she felt betrayed. He had no idea that his mother had been undercover as a cleaner until she confessed everything to him the night before. He was just as shocked as Adaora had been, but unlike her, he could see the love and good intentions behind his mother's actions. Knowing he needed to fix things, Femi decided to visit Adaora at her home. When she opened the door and saw him standing there, her expression was unreadable. "Why are you here, Femi?" she asked quietly. He took a deep breath. "Because I need you to hear me out. Please just give me a few minutes." Reluctantly, she let him in. "I had no idea my mother was doing this," he admitted. "But I won't lie and say I regret it. If she hadn't done what she did, I might never have met you." and I would have missed out on knowing an incredible woman. Adaora listened silently, unsure of how to respond. I never saw this as a test, he continued. I got to know you because I wanted to, and I fell for you because of who you are, not because of what my mother wanted. But if you feel like you can't forgive us, I'll respect your decision. I just needed you to know the truth. He looked at her with sincerity, hoping she would see past the deception and understand his heart. Adaora took several days to think about everything. The betrayal still stung, but she also couldn't deny that Femi's words had been honest. She had spent time with him, not because of his wealth or status, but because she had truly enjoyed his company. The moments they had shared were real, and she could not ignore the connection between them. Madame Ireti also tried to apologize again. She visited Adaora at work, no longer dressed as a cleaner, but as the elegant businesswoman she truly was. I know I overstepped, she said, and I won't ask for forgiveness if you're not ready to give it. But I want you to know that I admire you, Adaora. You are the kind of woman I have always prayed my son would meet. Adaora appreciated the honesty, and for the first time, she saw things from Madame Ireti's perspective. As a mother, she had only wanted what was best for her son. Though her method had been unconventional, her heart had been in the right place. Slowly, the anger inside her began to fade. A week later, Femi invited her out again, this time with no expectations or pressure. He simply wanted to spend time with her and allow things to develop naturally. Adaora accepted the invitation, knowing that, despite everything, she still wanted to see where this journey would lead. Femi knew that words alone would not be enough to fully mend things with Adaora. He wanted to show her, through his actions, that his feelings for her were genuine and not influenced by his mother's involvement. After much thought, he decided to do something meaningful, something that reflected Adaora's values and dreams. He arranged for a special event at a local financial literacy foundation, one that Adaora had previously expressed interest in. The foundation focused on educating young Nigerians about smart money management, helping them make informed financial decisions. Femi made a generous donation in Adaora's name, ensuring that the foundation could expand its outreach and impact. When Adaora received an invitation to the event, she was surprised to find Femi there, personally overseeing everything. I know how much financial education means to you, he told her. So I wanted to support something you care about, not to impress you, but because I truly believe in what you're doing. Adaora was deeply touched. It wasn't a flashy or materialistic grand gesture, it was something meaningful, something that showed he had truly listened to her. As she watched him engage with young students at the foundation, she saw a different side of him, one that was kind, thoughtful, and genuinely invested in making a difference. Slowly, the walls she had built around her heart began to crumble. After the foundation event, Adaora and Femi spent more time together, this time with no lingering tension between them. The more they talked, the more she realized that what they shared was real. Femi had proven that he was not just a wealthy businessman, he was a man of character, someone who genuinely valued her for who she was. One evening, as they sat by the waterfront in Lekki, Adaora turned to Femi and smiled. You know, she said softly, I was so focused on the way this started that I almost ignored how much I've come to care about you. Femi reached for her hand, holding it gently. I never wanted to force anything, he said. I just wanted the chance to show you who I really am. For the first time, Adaora allowed herself to fully embrace her feelings. She realized that she had spent so much time protecting herself from being hurt that she had almost missed out on something beautiful. She looked into Femi's eyes and nodded. Let's see where this goes, she said, finally giving him the answer he had been waiting for. When Madame Ireti heard the news, she was overjoyed. She had taken a risk, and though it had been a complicated journey, everything had worked out in the end. Her son had found the right woman, not because of her interference, but because love had found its way naturally. Months passed, and Femi and Adaora's relationship continued to grow stronger. They learned from each other, supported one another, and built a foundation based on trust and mutual respect. Femi had no doubt that he wanted to spend the rest of his life with Adaora, and he began planning the perfect proposal. But unlike the grand, elaborate proposals that many would expect from a billionaire, Femi wanted something simple yet meaningful. He remembered that Adaora had once mentioned how much she loved the idea of traditional African engagements, ones filled with culture, family, and love rather than extravagance. On a quiet evening, Femi invited Adaora to a small family gathering at his mother's home. When she arrived, she was greeted by his closest family members and friends, dressed in beautiful Yoruba and Igbo traditional attire to honor both of their heritages. Madame Ireti, beaming with happiness, presented Adaora with a symbolic kola nut, signifying unity and acceptance into the family. Then, as the sun began to set, Femi got down on one knee. "Adaora, you've taught me what it means to truly love and be loved," he said. "I don't just want you in my life, I need you by my side, forever. Will you marry me?" Tears filled Adaora's eyes as she nodded. "Yes, Femi. Yes." The room erupted in celebration, and at that moment, she knew she had made the right choice. The wedding preparations were filled with excitement and joy. Adaora wanted something elegant, but not overly extravagant, while Femi insisted on ensuring that the event was special in every way. They decided on a beautiful, culturally rich wedding that blended both Igbo and Yoruba traditions, celebrating their union in the most meaningful way possible. Madame Ireti, finally seeing her dream come true, worked closely with Adaora's family to ensure everything was perfect. "You are not just marrying my son," she told Adaora warmly. "You are gaining a family that will always stand by you." The bond between them had grown, and any past misunderstandings were now forgotten. On the wedding day, Adaora looked stunning in her traditional bridal attire, radiating happiness and confidence. As she walked down the aisle, she saw Femi waiting for her with pure love in his eyes. The ceremony was filled with heartfelt moments, prayers, and laughter, marking the beginning of a new journey for them both. As they exchanged vows, Femi whispered, "I promise to love you, respect you, and stand by you, no matter what." Adaora smiled, knowing that she was not just marrying a man, she was building a future with someone who truly understood and valued her. Married life brought new experiences, but Adaora and Femi embraced each challenge together. They supported each other's careers, traveled together, and made time for the things that truly mattered. Their love story, though unconventional in its beginning, became an inspiration to those around them. Madame Ireti found peace knowing that her son had found not just a wife, but a partner who would walk beside him through life's journey. "You have proven to me that love is about more than money or status," she told Adaora one evening. "It's about finding someone who brings out the best in you." Femi and Adaora remained deeply in love, never letting go of the foundation they had built. Despite their different backgrounds, they proved that real love was based on understanding, patience, and mutual respect. Together, they built a legacy, not just of wealth, but of love, kindness, and purpose. As the years passed, their love story continued to flourish. They had found what so many people search for all their lives: true companionship, happiness, and a love that stood the test of time. And so, they lived their happily ever after, proving that sometimes the most unexpected journeys lead to the most beautiful destinations. The end.